started his game. Well, not the Reti, but similar structures did appear afterwards, but it started with 1c4 with the English opening.
Yeah, it's the English, and very interesting to see how also Quang reacts. So with e5, so yeah, it was not c4, e5, it was c4, knight f6, knight c3, e5, knight f3, knight c6, g3, d5, cd, knight d5, bishop g2, bishop c5, castles, castles, queen c2. I mean, this bishop c5 line, I think it's called the Grishchuk variation. I think for the very first time on the highest level, Grishchuk introduced it against Pavel Elyanov. I think it was in Geneva Grand Prix in 2017 in July, if I'm not mistaken, because I heard the press conference afterwards, and Grishchuk went on to win such a model game from the black side that I think everybody who was interested in the chess theory was thinking like, wow, a completely new concept, and by now it's one of the main reactions.
All right, super interesting stuff. Lots of theoretical discussion. So black has fallen back with the bishop to b6, just a prophylactic move against b4. And this also implies that now b4, you can also aim to meet it with knight d4 or a5, b5, knight d4. Feels quite harmonious. Queen d7 connecting the rooks, eyeing the move bishop f5 or bishop h3, trading off that bishop. To me, at first sight, it looks like Quang has solved all opening problems. But to play against the bishop on b6, he has kept this e3, f2 pawns. But one still gets the feeling that, yes, it's interesting what you say about this opening, that white is never very ambitious from the very start. You just want a game, that's what he's got. I still think Liem is pretty pleased with the outcome. The fact that against the world champion, it's the first game of the day. You start off with a comfortable position with black. I think that's good news. And Peter, you were mentioning playing against the bishop. Magnus chooses to make the move knight a4, hitting it immediately, also threatening the move knight c5.
I don't know. Maybe the trick is some queens, and Quang goes rook f8. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised, because I really felt like this bishop f5 is the move that would bother me from the white side.
This position, on the other hand, has gone completely different from what we were thinking, Peter. Do you want to take it from where we left it last? Because no bishop f5 happened.
Yes, no bishop f5, and I somehow feel that with rook e8, maybe Liem has missed this d4 idea that actually white can try to strike immediately in the center, because I'm not such a big fan if you have to give up this light square bishop. But okay, the problem was that the move d4 was a very, very subtle move order, that white is not grabbing on b6 first. He keeps all the options open. After d4, if black takes on d4, then Magnus would jump on taking on b6, and after cb6 he would take knight d4 with clear advantage, solving all the structural problems. And so if black plays the move e5, e4, then white jumps knight e5. That's also a move that hurts black big time. So bishop f3 was kind of forced. Takes, rook fd1. And of course, it's a very nice judgment by Magnus, feeling that, I mean, it looks like black is having things under control on d4, but white is starting to take on b6 and take on d4. So Liem uses his chance with knight e5 to create complications, hitting the bishop. White took on b7, and black played the move d3. Magnus opted for this bishop takes e5, d takes c2, and rook takes d7 on the board now. Knight d7.
He has to take knight d7.
With the idea that after rook c1, I'm gonna jump knight c5, and hoping
no time to take knight c5 because there's rook d1, so white has to take the c2 pawn.
Yes, you have to take, and then I might take on b3, but it might be a very bad ending, because takes rook b2, you end up winning material.
We have something very similar on the board. So let's just go to our live position. Instead of bishop c3, Magnus came all the way back to b2. So more control on the c1 square, which makes at least threats like rook d8, rook d1 less dangerous, because the rook will be defended on c1. The move knight c5 played immediately, hitting that pawn on b3. But doesn't this allow knight takes c5, bishop c5, rook c1? And then he wants to go rook b8. I think that's the idea.
Yes, that's the idea. I mean, it's very much in the spirit. Okay, idea, and Magnus goes rook c1 immediately. Yeah, he has to do this. And basically
black has to capture on b3, no?
Yeah, but then the problem is that the knight is kind of trapped. Yeah, how nice that white still did not capture on b6. Yeah,
white is going to win the c2 pawn eventually.
Yes, and you still have the weaknesses on a5 and c7. Yeah, Liem goes for knight takes b3, rook takes c2, f6. f6, of course, a very, very nice move. First of all, creating luft for the king, getting ready to bring the king closer. Also shutting down the bishop on b2 on the long diagonal. Yeah, this is a very, very good move. And Magnus comes also with the king f1. The only problem for Liem is that white's play of bringing his king is much more effective because black has this vulnerable knight on b3. Imagine just some king e2, king d3, king c4 walk, and the knight on b3 is trapped. Yeah, I go rook c4. I anyway gonna collect this a4 pawn, but still, this is already some kind of achievement for black because this rook endgame has the tendency of finally reaching 4 versus 3 on the king side. Definitely a very good chance to escape. But I also saw now that Quang Liem had a bishop on b8. How did that happen? So Magnus, of course, doing Magnus things. He's not allowing this rook endgame. No, never. He says, you know what? You have really uncoordinated pieces. And yeah, rook b2, bishop a7, king e2, and now there is this pin along the b file. The king is coming closer. King d5, e4 check, very, very important because white wants to get to the c4 square with his king. That's why he's heading. King c6, king c4. Knight is forced to c1. Wow, I mean, I have never seen something like this, that black has a closed bishop on b8 with the pawn on c7 and the kind of trapped knight on c1.
Also, these are opposite squares. That bishop on b8, that's the square the knight belongs to at the start of the game. And where black's knight is right now in c1 is where we have the bishop at the start of the game. So it's a switch and not a happy switch.
Yeah, no, not at all. And okay, this is now just technically completely winning for Magnus. Yeah, king d3.
You've got to go knight. I mean, he's thinking knight g1 because knight d4 maybe runs into bishop e3 and you just end up pinning and winning that knight.
Yeah, but after knight g1, I think bishop e3 is very, very nice, forcing the trade of the bishops. And after bishop e3, king e3, the knight is forever trapped. After knight h3, white plays f4 and goodbye knight. Yeah.
Took control of all the tactics that were happening on the board. You remember after d3, d takes c2, just all aspects of the game were handled really well by him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but this is the typical story. If you give Magnus the slightest chance, he will be merciless. Yeah, and he's now incredibly focused. I still tend to believe that rook f8 was the cause of all black's problems. I mean, the move bishop f5 should have been somehow included. I have this feeling. But okay, rook f8, d4, bishop f3 takes, all this tactical skirmish. Magnus was in total control. d3, bishop takes e5, d takes e2, rook d7. I mean, I'm going here fast because we have discussed this during the broadcast already. So bishop takes a8, rook takes a8. The move bishop b2 was very, very nice. And we talked about it that, yeah, what is important difference, this retreat.